Hi everyone, it's Alison in my violin studio. I'm talking today about staccato, and this will be my last video of the day on the subject. In this video I want to talk about how you correctly use the staccato element in a couple of really basic rhythms that you're going to run into again and again and again and again. The first one, because staccato is an important part of rhythm, and you kind of discover that in the doing. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about, I don't really have a musical example because I couldn't think of one. When you have an eighth note followed by 2/16. Okay, you get that if you do Suzuki, the Twinkle variations. And, you know, it just keeps popping up all over the place. So the correct way to do that is you play the first note staccato. This does not have to be in a staccato passage. We're simply talking about the articulation necessary to make this sound correct. You have to bite into the string, and then once you've bitten in, that gives you a bit of a launching pad, if you will, for the 2/16 that follow. And in fact, because we're not in a staccato passage, you're going to play the 2/16 followed by the next eighth. So it's only after each eighth that you are going to stop the bow. So or if you have a mind for detail, you may think that because when you play a staccato note, you're playing a quick stroke, and you're actually only, the amount of time that you're sounding the note is only half of the note value that's written. So that first eighth note, we're actually playing a 16th, and the stop in the string is equivalent to a 16th note rest. So if you were to count that pattern in 16th notes, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, does that make sense? So if you think of it that way, and if you don't want to think of it that way, that's fine, because you know, different people do better at perceiving things in different ways. So I'll just throw images out there, and the ones that work keep, and the ones that don't, throw them away. But whenever you have short, short, long, you stop before. Stop. Stop. Okay, so that's where that belongs in that that figure, and that pops up all over the place. Second one I want to talk about is something that if you're doing Suzuki, you'll run into towards the end of the first Suzuki book, when you start to have dotted patterns. And keep in mind, now I'm not talking about the staccato dot, I'm talking about the rhythm dot, which is the one right after a note, and it indicates that that note is now longer by half again of its value. So if you have a dotted rhythm and it's a quarter note with a dot followed by an eighth note, that means that the quarter is now worth a quarter plus an eighth, and then followed by an eighth note. So you get that in Happy Farmer. I forget what key that's in. We get that here. I'm exaggerating a little bit so that you see exactly where that dot goes. So what we do with that, the relationship between the staccato stroke and that dot, is that in order to make that rhythm sound clean and clear and properly articulated, where the dot is, that's where we put the staccato element as a rule. Staccato element, bite into the string, and now bite, bite, or if you're doing stop, and there it is here. Of course, in Happy Farm, you get lots of staccato notes. playing it quickly. Don't. No, it's not the same. Okay, so that's the second element, is whenever you have a dotted rhythm, unless it's covered by a slur. If it's covered by a slur, that's different. But if it's, bowing as you come, you have to stop. Otherwise, it sounds like... without the stop, it just loses its precise qualities that make it fun. The other one I want to talk about, just because I have this one walk into my studio periodically, a humoresque, which is a lovely piece that Dvorak wrote. There's lots of arrangements. I've seen it in different keys. This key is not, I don't think, what they have in the Suzuki. I have had people come in and play and wonder why it didn't quite sound right. So, start, bite the string, and come back. That's a pure staccato, right? You bite, play, bite. And now the next two notes are like a little burst. Those two notes, if you think about it, your fingers know that they're playing two notes, but your bow might be led to believe that there's only one note there because it's just a single up. We could do, yeah, it's the same bowing as, yeah, so bite, 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 bite. On these, we might release, but then we come back, bite in. So we never, your bow never kind of floats around in the air. As a general rule, never let your bow come off the string unless it's specifically supposed to come off. Okay, so sometimes that's something that happens and you don't realize it's happening, but your bow should be on the string because you can't really produce any music or much sound at all if the bow's in the air. So only bring it off when you need to. If you've got an effect like that, something like that. Okay, so those are the three rhythms I wanted to deal with. Was the dum digga dum digga dum. Okay, the second one was anything with a dot in terms of rhythm. Okay, and then humoresque, just because pretty much everybody learns humoresque, and a lot of people get mixed up on that, so that's an example of your articulation. A lot of pieces have just one or two things where you just have to make sure that that staccato element is there on a rest before you start a new note, or anytime you're playing something where you have a phrase. Here, there's a dotted one there too. Articulate, beginning of a new phrase. There's a string crossing, right? Keep it clean. Articulate. Articulation is a staccato element. Here we go. Another one, because that's a dotted rhythm. Okay. So you can think of a lot of them. National anthems, school cheer songs. Every piece has a few spots where you need to put that staccato element. And as you play with it, you realize that your musical phrase is defined by where you put your staccato element. And that's a lot of fun. That's actually when you start to have a lot of fun in the violin, is when you start to be aware and to be able to... We don't do stuff that's not in the music, but certainly becoming aware of how you can build a phrase, because if you have a staccato element and then starting a new line, and you might want to get it a little bit louder, and you might want to add a little vibrato, and then you might want to die away towards the end, and then you have another staccato element before the the next phrase, right? So anyway, it's fun. And I hope that helps and give you a couple of ideas for things to play around with. So have fun.